Hi, I'm Anna Olsen here on A1R Radio. Tonight, my segment is going to be about the shadow self, and that sometimes when we do readings, and sometimes when we're delving into spirit, we're delving into life, sometimes really sad things come up, sometimes things that are unfortunate come up. Basically, I want to go over why this happens, what good can come from this, because everything that I work with is going to create something good in your life. It's going to increase the positivity. And sometimes, now that we're going to have a full moon on Saturday, sometimes we need to kind of look at what we need to let go of and what it is that we can process in the here and now. So sometimes when these full moons are coming up, we work with our shadow self. I'm going to go over why we do that today. And I'm going to use some verbs and some different words that may sound a little bit scary to some people who don't understand readings or how they work. And I'm just going to go over it and explain it, because sometimes people can be a little fearful of readings. And I've come across this a little more recently. And I think now is a good time to go over it, because we are all a higher self, our spirit, and we are all have a shadow side. Now, all of this is very intricate, and there are a lot of moving parts here, but it's all interconnected. And the point is that we want to work with both our higher self, which guides us, and our shadow self, which usually needs help or will kind of help us to look at things that we need to focus on. When we're talking about shadow work or shadow self, it's taking pain or trauma, basically, or anything painful in life, and it's turning it into a strength. It's turning it into a growth and a learning opportunity. So I wanted to look at one way that I do readings with cards. I will get a deck of cards that is a little more true to life, a little more in your face. It's got some edginess to it, might have some, I don't know, just art that can be interpreted either in a way of like it's a little bit sad, or it can be interpreted into something artistic. So I usually will do a shadow deck with particular people. I will be able to feel what they need before the reading starts. Then I will use a good deck that's all light, all shiny, bright, happy. And I really think there needs to be a balance in our readings, because I will tell you why. Life is not always all good. Life has challenges. We need something that will reflect those challenges. And then we use our good deck to reflect how we can make that a positive thing in our life. Because what happens with fear, when people are afraid of getting a reading, or they're afraid of any of the shadow stuff coming up, is that we stuff it. And when you stuff something, it has to go somewhere. It doesn't just go away unless you process it and you bring it back up and out, and you filter it through emotional work, spiritual work. So the goal is to slowly, trickle effect, bring these things up and out so that you can process it, you can look at it, feel it, and figure out what you want to do with it. You can either let it go and get rid of it, you can do something about it, or you can even save it for later and work on it again later. So I wanted to also go over something that that I have experienced, and that is something that I can teach other people to look out for. And at first it scared me, because I didn't know exactly what it was. And I basically do read auras, so I see these energy fields around people. They're not anything super colorful for me. I know everybody's different, but in my experience, they are either really bright and I'll notice it, or they're really dark and I will notice it. It's only the really time that I will ever get to my attention will be drawn to somebody's aura, or it will surprise me. Really bright, really dark. And it depends upon where I am and what I'm doing. So if you think about where specific people congregate, you can see where the dark auras are, where the light auras are. And when I see a really bright aura, I want to get nearer to that person. I'm like, oh, I want to get a little bit closer to that person. I want to look at them. I want to really observe. Oh, what's so bright about them? It's very intriguing. It feels very comfortable. When I see a very dark aura, usually I'm either trying to figure out what I can do, or I'm trying to figure out how to get away from that person. Because I know that sometimes darker auras mean trouble. So there's a look that I have seen before when I've done readings, and that I've seen now just a handful of times among many, many people that I've done readings on, when I'm in person with somebody doing a reading, and where sometimes it will show up right when we start the reading, and other times it will be noticeable later in the reading. Now, I haven't done this anytime recently, so I don't want anybody who's watching who I've done readings on to think it was them. This was actually quite a while ago, the last time that I saw this, and I haven't seen two of these people that I'll be talking about tonight in a while. So the first person, first I want to clarify, the look that I see, I call it the look of death, and I want to clarify before that scares everybody that it is a distinct look in someone's eye, and both of their eyes, where you look at them and you see, it basically looks like maybe the person has passed, and it looks like a lot of like the light has gone out, or there's emptiness there. And of course, to most people, that's going to sound a little scary. And the first time that I saw it, it alarmed me. I will be honest. I was doing a reading on somebody, and this person had a look that I couldn't identify. And I knew that it was dark, and it was fear, and it was something that I had never really seen before. So we went farther into the reading, and what came up was that this person was dying, and in the process of dying. So this person was literally at the time facing their death. So we went into, the intricate parts of the reading and this person's death and all the feelings about it. We went into what happens in the afterlife, and there was a lot of processing that needed to be done, because this person was going through a lot of this alone, and this person was doing a lot of it in a way where they didn't have a lot of support. So I was very happy to walk them through a lot of it, because I have passed to the other side and then come back, and I was able to guide them through the process and how they might feel and what they might experience. So I think that really helped them to have a clearer mind and much more information about their journey than they previously had before the reading. So when I looked at their eyes, first of all, I didn't notice much. We started the reading, and I kind of started to go into the process of health and what was going on in their lives. As we talked more and more, I started to discover that the person had had cancer and was just doing some basic things to stay alive a little bit longer. And as we began to talk more and more about it, I could see the look of death definitely getting deeper in the eyes. And I think it's because we were pulling that spiritual fear, that energy up and out. We're starting to really process it, which was a good thing. After the reading, I noticed that this person's eyes were more bright, more sparkly. They were, he was laughing more. There was more of a light feeling in the room. So we were able to filter out these fears that he was stuffing, and that don't just go away when you pass. That not all of them go away. Some do, but anything that's attached to survival will pass. But anything that's kind of kept in a spiritual sense, that was not gained in wisdom and knowledge and the spiritual sense in this life, will continue on, and it will still need to be processed there. So it was feeling really good to get that up and out and processed. So later on, I did a reading on somebody who was not going to pass anytime soon, but they definitely had the death look again. And this time it was more energetic rather than looking so physical and spiritual. This time it looked very emotional and very energetic. So they were carrying a lot of what I would call death energy. And sometimes that is present when someone is either feeling trapped and like death might be the only answer. Sometimes somebody gets this look in their eye when they have a lot of death around them, or fear of death around them, or they are close to a loved one who may be ready to pass or who may be passing soon. So these things are processing in people. And sometimes when you see it at first, you're not sure what it is. My advice is to always, when you see this look with somebody, to be as supportive and as loving and as caring to that person as possible, because they are in a place of deep fear, deep anxiety sometimes. There's a hopelessness there. Sometimes it's really difficult for people to suffer. And our job as light workers and our job as fellow human beings is to really guide them through that and to let them know they're not alone. Because death can be one of the most lonely processes if the person does not have the proper support. Now, if somebody is a victim of a crime, let's say, oftentimes that person will have the guidance and the love of their guardian angels. So if you've had somebody who maybe had passed on when they were alone, you can be reassured that they oftentimes have a lot of guardian angels that will assist, ascended masters, past loved ones that will come and help them with that process to comfort them. And the feeling before people pass oftentimes is of deep peace. And I would say even most of the time it is of deep peace. So it's really important to understand these concepts. I don't think that it's talked about often enough. I mean, it shouldn't just be talked about in mortuaries and funeral homes. This should be something that is common knowledge, and it would comfort, I think, a lot of people who are dealing with the most dark time of their lives. Oftentimes, people who are, maybe they have a sick child or a spouse or a parent, or they are themselves going through a battle with their health. Sometimes people go through entire health emergencies by themselves because they don't want to tell their family and they want to handle it on their own. They want to shield and protect their family or their loved ones from it. And they want to handle it in the most responsible way possible. So there is a lot of secrets around death. There's a lot of hiding death. There's a lot of pain around death that is never spoken of in this dimension. There are people who literally will have conversations with their guardian angels, even while they're sleeping or while they're falling asleep, and nobody around them knows it. It's a very personal relationship, this relationship with death. And, it's something to be aware of for the general population. Just because we don't deal with death on a daily basis does not mean that it doesn't exist in the world of people around us. It's very present, and it can be one of the hardest things for us to process because it's sometimes the least understood process on the planet. We don't talk about it enough. So I wanted to just give everybody an idea of what you can do. If you have a sense or an intuition, or you see a look in someone's eye, you can't always assume that it's like there's something wrong and you need to get away. Try, the way that you can test this, and this is a little secret, is you can try to do something for them that is loving, kind, merciful, just something that is really loving, caring, and you can't lose with that. If you're afraid that maybe the person is just kind of an evil person, or there's something weird there, or you're kind of scared, you can try to do something really loving and caring for them and see their reaction. Did it help them? Did it light up their eyes? Did you notice a shift in this? Did it really make a difference for good? Did you feel better because of it? Those are the signs that the person can benefit and that they may be going through a very difficult time that you are not fully aware of, and only aware of on an intuitive or subconscious level. Now, the way that you can tell somebody may be trying to take advantage of you, or they are not a good person and they don't need any help, or they can't be helped, the way that you know that is you do kind things for them, and they'll take and take and take. They will never be satiated. They will never be satisfied, and they will keep taking. And it will not really make a big difference. They will definitely say a thank you and maybe act very charming, but they basically will not really be all that grateful. For the most part, they will just expect more and more and more, and perhaps manipulate, or they may, have a strange attitude about it or something like that. It won't make anything better. You may walk away feeling drained or worse afterwards. So that's how you can tell, you can really gauge if this is really honestly something scary, that you want to get away from, or you can actually help somebody in this situation. So half the time when I've seen this and we've gone over it, I started out being afraid, and afterwards it was much better. It was a little difficult to delve into these things because it is a little stressful for a reader, because you're hoping to help the person, and you're helping just to make it better for them. But it was a great learning experience for me. I've also done these great life and death readings where I've sat down with the person. I had no idea we were going to do it previously, but I sit down and I see their entire passing. I see their entire death process and how it will go. So I go through it, exactly what's going to happen, who's going to come get them when they pass. These sorts of readings are the most sacred, beautiful, amazing readings I've ever done. I feel like heaven touches earth. We cry our eyes out. I feel closer to the human race. I feel closer to people. I have faith in humanity after these readings. They are pivotal, they're beautiful, and they're everything that I would hope this work could ever be. So I want to just reiterate that sometimes death, people are more on the path of acceptance and peace with death, and other times people are really afraid and they have no one and they are alone and they need that support from their fellow humans. And it's a good idea for us to look for signs. Some of the signs before somebody, when somebody's feeling really, really hopeless, and they may feel overwhelmed just with being alive, you may kind of get the sense that they need something, but you can't put your finger on it. It could be that you ask them how they're doing and they'll say fine, but you know that there's something else going on. You know that there is this ulterior issue going on there that's deeper and that you can't quite understand. Those are the times when all you can really do is continue to support them, show up at the door, like let's say with dinner or something, or just do little things to let them know you care. You can't control what somebody else does, but you can definitely do your best and say you tried everything you possibly could. The other thing you can do is you can straight out ask somebody the very blatant question. You can ask them if they're seeming really depressed or hopeless, if they've thought about killing themselves, or if they thought about hurting themselves. You can ask them straight out. I know that sounds like a really strange thing to ask somebody, but it's better to ask and get a good, honest answer than to just shrug it off and something happen. So another thing that had happened in the past is I had picked up on that there was something wrong with a family friend of ours, and they had, I asked about them, I kind of did all I could, and I kind of shrugged it off, and they ended up committing suicide. And this was a very unfortunate thing that had happened. I started to feel responsible, and then I realized I cannot control what they do, but I can do my best. I can do what I can. I can't cross boundaries, but I can do what I can where I am with what I have, and that is enough. So delving into, okay, what we are responsible and we're not responsible for. We are not responsible for their actions, first and foremost. We can't always stop what somebody else does, but we can definitely follow our gut and our intuition. If they're giving things away, especially all of their really prized belongings or things that mean a lot to them or that are very expensive, that is a sign that something may be going on. That is one of the leading things that will lead to suicide. Another thing that they could end up doing is calling you up out of nowhere, just saying, hey, just want to say hi, and you hadn't heard from them for like 2 or 3 years or something. And if you know that they've had either bipolar, or they've had depression or something like that, then you could definitely just ask them, are you thinking about hurting yourself? It's a very quick, simple, just question. You're not thinking about hurting yourself, are you? I'm serious. Be really like, let them know you're not kidding. Let them know you're serious, and then let them know that you're there and that you want to help in any way you can. Really, just the way that you can help is either being with them physically, or you can get them to a mental health facility. Those are two options. They don't usually want to go to a mental health facility. However, it's better than them dying. Okay. So I think really putting some things into play where you're going to help the person, even if you have to dial 911, whatever it is that you have to do to make sure that they are safe, that is the key. And never to feel guilty if you did everything you could and it didn't work. Because ultimately, there's only so much we can do. We are one person, we do what we can. And their actions are their responsibility, and our actions, what we do with our life, is ours. So we have to know where we end and they begin, or they end and we begin. We put those boundaries up, not only for their own good, but for our own good. In addition, sometimes somebody's life is in danger from another person. So sometimes somebody has an abusive husband, or sometimes somebody is dealing with even like a family that may be dangerous, that they know they can't tell anyone about. Or sometimes people are in dangerous situations for other reasons. They may have a stalker. I mean, there's all sorts of weird things that happen in the world that people just don't talk about, that us readers may hear about. Some readers hear about it, some don't. I have heard about all of these things, and this is kind of the dark side of readings that I feel like we really need to kind of go over more and more. Not to get onto like a negative, dense consciousness energy level, but just really to know that what we do with that energy level is what counts. And if we can turn it into something positive in any way, that's the goal. We all have a shadow side. We all have a shadow side. We all have a higher self. The shadow side can become depressed. The shadow side has a lot of trauma. It has sometimes bipolar disorder. It has mood swings. It's affected by hormones, or it causes hormonal imbalances. Sometimes this shadow side is mean, angry, violent, vindictive, malicious, malevolent. There are all these things that the shadow side can look like. It can become a monster when it's stuffed for long enough. The higher self is our spiritual side that inherently knows all that is good and true. Our higher self is our spiritual self that's connected to the rest of anything positive, happy, or loving, or joy. And we each have both. The goal is to mesh the two so that we have one solid entity that's healing all of the trauma and processing it through the higher self, regulated in a very organized way. That's the goal here with the shadow side and the higher self and that kind of work. Now I'm out of time. But if you'd like to reach me for a reading, you can do that, AnnaOlsenIntuitive.com. And it's OLSEN, and Anna has 2 N's, so AnnaOlsenIntuitive.com. You can also schedule there. You can do a phone reading with me if you're not in my area. I'm here tonight in Avila Beach, California. So I just hope that you have a wonderful week, and I will see you next week. I'll be here 6:30 Pacific Standard Time every Thursday here on A1R, and I hope you have a wonderful night and a wonderful week, and I will see you soon. Please contact me if you would like a reading. I'm Anna Olsen, and I will talk to you soon.